Alright guys, before we start the show, let's get through the rigmarole first. Remember guys, this podcast posts every single Saturday. We give you all the NFL news you need to know about, and then we go through hot topics around the league for the second segment of the show. If you guys want to do a fan Q&A on this podcast like we do on the other one, let me know down in the comment section below. So let's get into this. There's obviously not a lot going on. It's the off season, but there's a couple interesting news stories. Obviously, the biggest one this past week was Derek Carr's record-breaking contract extension for 5 years. I think it's $25 million annually. I know that. It's 40-something guaranteed. So it's a big contract. Obviously, he's the richest player in NFL history. But again, I hate when I see people like comparing him to people who've been in the league for like 10 plus years and stuff like that. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like if you had a franchise quarterback, whether that's even Kirk Cousins or Matt Stafford, whoever it is, if you have a franchise quarterback, you better make sure you lock that person up for many, many, many years to come. It really doesn't matter how much you pay him unless it cripples your franchise. I mean, obviously the Raiders and Reggie McKenzie did a really good job of strategically placing certain things so they could extend to other people, which was really smart. But in my opinion, I think Derek Carr deserved it. I don't think there's a lot of people who don't think he didn't. I mean, for God's sakes, the kid. I mean, he plays in a very tough division. Before he got there, the Raiders were just absolute garbage. I mean, they were getting destroyed by bad teams, not by good teams, by bad teams. They were getting blown out. They were worse than the Browns. So it's not. I'm not saying to disparage Cleveland fans or anything like that. I'm not trying to hate or anything. I'm not trying to hate on Raiders fans, but when you get somebody like who can literally just turn your franchise around, obviously he wasn't alone in that. Khalil Mack was a big part of that, but he was a bigger part because he came in there, he turned the franchise around, he turned the mentality around. I think he really freshened up the place. I mean, obviously, Reggie McKenzie, all of those guys weren't anything until Derek Carr got there. And obviously Al Davis' son, who I'm spacing out on right now. I mean, nobody now they're a very mainstream team like the Warriors are. They're very popular, but before that, Derek Carr really just revived. Did CPR in the Raiders franchise, and I think he deserves all the money in the world. When somebody does that for your franchise, it's as a fan when that happens to you, it's an immeasurable value. There's not enough money you could pay somebody like that to do something like that for your franchise. So yeah, Derek Carr definitely deserves it. And for what he does on the football field, he's a playmaker. He's got one of the fastest releases in the league. He's a great leader. And he's a great player. So I think he deserved it. And like I said, if you ever get a franchise quarterback, which if you don't have one, again, the search for one can really cripple your franchise for years and years and years and years and years. You could be a playoff team and not have a franchise quarterback but never win the ring. And that's sometimes the equalizer for some football teams. Is do you have that guy taking the snaps, and if you don't, you're not going to win a ring. So, I mean, there's obviously been some misconceptions to the rule. There's been some exceptions to the rule. Obviously, Peyton Manning with the Denver Broncos, that he was pretty bad. Even though he's Peyton Manning, he had a terrible season. Obviously, Father of Time caught up to him. And then you look down the line, Trent Dilfer, who won it with the Ravens. There's been a lot of there's been a few bad quarterbacks to win a ring. So there are exceptions to the rule, but they're very rare. And you have to have an all-time great defense to even do it. So I think Derek Carr deserves it for all those different reasons. And I think everybody, I think it's not. I don't think it's a subjective topic. I think it's fact that he deserves it. I just don't understand the argument that he didn't. And the whole, he got all that money. Well, everybody else, I mean, Andrew Luck is getting paid $1 million less than him a year. I think he's getting paid $24 million a year. So, it's not his fault he got paid all that money. Everybody else said the groundwork before him. And he deserves it, like I said. So, that's what I think. And then, obviously, to get into another topic everybody's talking about is who's going to get it next. Who's going to get that contract next? Obviously, Matt Stafford's coming up. Aaron Rodgers is coming up sooner. He's a little later than sooner, but he wants a new deal done. And then you see, obviously, Kirk Cousins, who has just... Poor Kirk Cousins. If I was starting a franchise, and I didn't... I mean, obviously, he wouldn't be my first pick. But Kirk Cousins he's a really good quarterback. He did have a really good supporting cast. I think that's one of the negative things I can say about him is he had a really good supporting cast. I'm not saying that's why they didn't win games, but the thing that concerned me with Kirk Cousins more than anything is all the turnovers in the fourth quarter. You can't do that in crunch time if you're going to be one of the best in the game. So that's one thing he needs to work on, obviously. And he had a really good supporting cast around him. He had a really good offensive line. He had really good receivers. He had one of the best tight ends in the game, Jordan Reed. I mean, and now he lost Pierre Garçon to the 49ers, and he lost Deshaun Jackson to Tampa Bay. They obviously picked up Terrell Pryor, and they're hoping Josh Doxson, that they drafted a few years ago, can help out. But when you lose that much talent, it's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt your production, for sure. So it's going to be interesting to see if those guys can pick up the slack. I don't think neither of those guys were as talented as the guys that left, especially Pierre Garçon. He's very underrated. Really underrated run after the catch receiver, and I think he would be a top 3 route runner in the league. He's really smooth. So yeah, it's ridiculous. And I just you shouldn't hate on old Derek Carr. That's all I'm saying. Alrighty then, what other news we got over here? Obviously, another big news story. I don't know if we talked about. Did this happen? If it did, I apologize, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Obviously, Eric Decker did not take him long to find a home. He found a home in Tennessee. This is what this next news story is about. Eric Decker signing with the Tennessee Titans. And the year before, the pre-draft stuff that I was doing, and I didn't talk about the Titans, but when I was talking about the Titans with other people, I was like, listen, they have a really good chance to get two guys in the first round to really help out Marcus Mariota. Because when you looked at Marcus Mariota's offense last year, they started off really slow. Mariota started off really slow and not very good. That offense was really not clicking yet. In the passing game, not in the running game. All they had was obviously Rashard Matthews, Kendall Wright. Their best weapon was Delaney Walker in the receiving game. So they really did a tremendous job. And Marcus Mariota, he got hot. And he had like 25 touchdowns. He was an MVP candidate for a while there, without all those people. Obviously he had one of the best running games in the league, and one of the best offensive lines. So it wasn't that hard, but it's not like he took a terrible team and was an MVP candidate. But to get Corey Davis in the first, hopefully he works out, and it looks like he will. Obviously he's a small school kid from Western Michigan, so it's going to be interesting to see if he can translate to the NFL. Obviously, some of the analyst criticisms of Corey Davis really didn't take over games against lesser competition, so that's a big red flag. But I think Corey Davis is going to be a really good player. And then obviously, they helped out the secondary, did some nice things there, which was another big problem for the Titans. But they really did a good job of surrounding Marcus Mariota with talent this offseason. So they should be much, much, much improved. With Corey Davis and now Eric Decker, their offensive unit is looking really, 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 really deadly. And they turned one of the worst receiver cores in the league into one of the best. Because, you got Eric Decker, Rashard Matthews, Rashard Matthews is one of the best 2s in the league. Eric Decker is a 2. They're hoping Corey Davis is going to be a 1. Because they don't have a clear number 1 on that team yet. And they're hoping Corey Davis is that, because the other 2 are definitely not. And obviously, Kendall Wright's a burner. So it's going to be interesting. So they did a really good job of surrounding Mariota with talent. And that team should be much improved this upcoming season. So a great signing by them. Eric Decker, he gives Mariota a big. Thing he does is he's a big guy. Big. You could throw him a bad ball, and he'll still go up and get it. You don't have to throw him the most accurate ball. He's got a big catch radius. Is what I meant to say. All right. Whew. All right. I'm kind of obviously another huge news. Another big news. The Chiefs fire their GM John Dorsey for reasons that I don't understand. When you look at the Chiefs, we're getting off topic here, but I know this is a podcast. This is what we do. We sit here, we have a conversation. Anyway, it doesn't matter. John Dorsey, right? They fired John Dorsey. The Bills did the same thing. It just really scratches your head. Obviously, somebody's not getting along with the man in the organization, whether that be Andy Reid or the owner. Who knows? But somebody's not getting along with him. That's why they fired him. And you can see what he did in the draft. Obviously, one of the bigger things he did this offseason, he extended Eric Berry. I think the Chiefs did a really bad, I'm not going to say Alex Smith is a bad quarterback, but I think he's overrated in a lot of different ways. Everybody raves about how he doesn't turn the ball over, which is, I mean, you want that in your quarterback, obviously, but at the same time, I think, I'm not going to call him a game manager because I hate that term, but you saw in the AFC Championship, really didn't make a lot of plays. So obviously there was a little bit of a need for a quarterback in the draft, but obviously they reached for one in Pat Mahomes, who's a big prospect, who they probably wouldn't have been. I mean, maybe the Cardinals select him, but they did give up a lot for him, and I think that was a bad move. They give up so much for him, obviously, to the Buffalo Bills, but it's going to be interesting to see how that works out in Kansas City. Obviously, somebody's not getting along with the GM, which is not a good thing. Obviously, Pat Mahomes is behind Alex Smith. Interesting to see if he can push out Alex, similar to what Colin Kaepernick did. And obviously, Andy Reid one of the bigger rumors was the reason why they weren't moving on from Alex Smith is because Andy Reid loved him so much. So again, you gotta listen. Relationships in football it's very interesting because some relationships are prolonged because it's so hard to say, you're just not good enough. And we, as Dolphins fans, we kind of saw that with Joe Philbin and Stephen Ross. They had a really weird relationship. I think that's why that relationship continued longer than it needed to. So if you're the Chiefs, at least you're trying to step in the right direction. You can't worry about hurting people's feelings when you want to win a ring. And it is what it is. I mean, there's nothing else which you can say about it. You got to do what you got to do to win that ring. So moving on from that story. This is an interesting story. Greg Olsen is unhappy with his contract. He's one of the more, Greg's one of the more underrated players in the NFL. Obviously broke the tight end record for most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons with 3 in a row, which is insane. Greg is one of the best receiving threats in the league. He's the best route runner out of all the tight ends. He's the best technical tight end in the league. He's a really great example. Of fundamentals and how they can make you a great player on any level. He's just a great player. One of the best. I mean, the man. Just some of his circus catches is insane. Obviously Greg is not. The story reads Greg not rolling out a holdout. Which if I was Greg Olsen, I would hold out. There's 12 other tight ends that are getting paid more than Greg Olsen, and he broke the record. Not even Rob Gronkowski, not even Jimmy Graham, not even Travis Kelce, not even Tony Gonzalez, not even Ozzie Newsome, not even Kellen Winslow, not even any of these Shannon Sharp, not any of these great tight ends ever did that. And Greg deserves to be paid like a top 5 tight end in this league for what he does, especially what he's done for the Panthers, for God's sakes. So it is a little bit of a head scratcher of why this hasn't gotten done yet. This next news story: the Rams unlikely to extend Tremaine Johnson, which is really interesting. I think we got to dive deep into this article. Let's dive right up in here. So I don't want to take credit. This is about Dallas Robinson on Pro Football Rumors. You guys can go read the article yourself. But the article reads: the odds of the Rams reaching. I'm not going to read the whole thing. The odds of the Rams reaching a long-term agreement with the franchise tag cornerback Tremaine Johnson are extremely slim, according to Jason LaCaforna, I can never say that guy's name, of CBS Sports. Los Angeles spoke with Johnson's representatives regarding an extension only once, and the discussion went fruitful enough to warrant another round of talks. If he's not extended, Johnson will play under the franchise tag for the second consecutive season. As such, his fully guaranteed base salary for the 2017 campaign will be $16 million. That is a 20% raise over his 2016 salary and the highest figure among cornerbacks for the upcoming year. The 27-year-old Johnson will earn north of $30 million for the 2016-2017 season. Obviously, Tremaine Johnson, there was a bunch of rumors that he was going to be traded. The Saints in Cleveland was involved, and obviously, the thing about Tremaine, obviously, I thought they were going to let him go. I thought he was going to be a Dolphin for a while there. But they put the franchise tag on him. Tremaine Johnson is literally one of the best corners in the league. I did a top 5 most underrated players in the NFL who haven't made the Pro Bowl. The top 5 players who have never made a Pro Bowl. Basically the top 5 most underrated players in the league. Tremaine Johnson was my number 1. The man grabbed 8 interceptions and did make a Pro Bowl, which is insane. He's one of the best man coverage corner. He doesn't play any zone coverage. He's strictly man. He's probably the only other guy who does that is Patrick Peterson, who just plays strictly on an island. It's a very rare talent. Marcus Peters does it sometimes, but he doesn't do it to the extent that those two do it. And there's nobody else in the league that does it. I mean, Joe Hayden, when he was healthy, did it. He was one of the other ones. Obviously, Darrelle Revis was another one who did it. But he's one of them who does it. He's on an island with the best guy across from him. So if somebody manages to scoop him up, I don't know why the Rams are so hesitant to just pull the trigger on that, because he is the cornerstone of their defense, and they obviously lost William Hayes and T.J. McDonald to us, by the way, to my Miami Dolphins. They're losing some people here, and if they lose Tremaine Johnson, that's going to be a big hole on that defense. I hope he gets let free. Let my team snag him up. He is definitely one of the better players in the league, and it does bad. I think he made the Pro Bowl last year. All right, this next piece of news is an update on the Colin Kaepernick situation, and this article is by Zach Winks. It's on Pro Football Rumors if you guys are going to want to go look at it. Some of the quotes come from the Monday Morning Quarterback. And it says Colin Kaepernick wouldn't. This is one of the reasons why the 49ers let him go. It says the article reads that Colin Kaepernick wouldn't stay late at the facility during the season like many quarterbacks routinely do, opting instead to take work home. That did not sit well with coaches, who felt his mediocre prep work led to his bad mistake in games. When asked if he thinks Colin Kaepernick wants to continue playing another season, a team employee said, "I don't think he wants to play to stay relevant." It should be noted that Colin Kaepernick tossed only 4 picks to 16 touchdowns. So I think a lot of that is being overblown. And I think it was kind of a mistake for the 49ers. I know they want to move on and start clean, but Colin Kaepernick is not a bad quarterback. And it wouldn't have hurt them to have him stick around for an extra season there. Obviously, you guys got to deal with Brian Hoyer. So this next piece of news is the last piece of news, and I think we're only 17 minutes into the show. This is the off season. Listen, I'm telling you guys, we might need this fan Q&A, because there's not a lot to talk about. This next piece of news is referring to Peyton Manning and his relationship with Adam Gase. I think this was more of a joke, and some people are taking it seriously, like it was a legitimate thing. Obviously, when the Dolphins quarterback Ryan Tannehill, I say "are" because it's that team thing. When you're a hardcore fan, it's "we," okay? But anyway, Tannehill goes down. Obviously, he injures his knee, misses the playoffs, out for the rest of the season. Adam Gase contacts Peyton Manning and says, jokingly, I can't remember the exact quote. I got it right here. He said, this is a quote from, I think, Adam Gase. This is a quote from Archie Manning. He said, basically, I think he was joking. And he just said, Peyton, when do you want to come out of retirement? What do I got to tell the media? And it would have been hilarious to see that Peyton Manning line up in a Dolphins uniform for the last few games of the season and going into the playoffs. But obviously, Peyton Manning, in a jokingly way, said no. I think it was more of a joke. Like, some people are taking this way too seriously, because I do think it was a joke. All right, let's move into the second segment of the show, and that's where we go through NFL topics, which is probably more interesting than some of the news that's been spreading around. I can't wait for the season to start with this podcast, because I really do believe that just to talk about what's going on in the league, who's best, who's bad. We can add more segments to the show. It's going to be really, really fun. And I can't wait for the season to start, for most of the content that comes out on this channel, because I think all of the content on this channel will be much improved. So this topic is a big topic, biggest snubs to not make the top 10, top 100 players list. And if anybody has I have a conspiracy theory. I don't know about you guys, but I have a conspiracy theory that this list is not done by the players. I remember it looks like Gerald, I know a lot of them vote on it. I don't know how many vote on it, but some of them contradict themselves a lot. Saying that a lot of them said Drew Brees should be a top 3 quarterback. Obviously, he was ranked in the 20s. I guess that doesn't necessarily, but some quarterbacks ranked over him, like Dak. I think Derek, and obviously Aaron and Brady. So that's 4. So if he's a top 3, it doesn't make any sense to me. I just have this weird feeling that list is not done by the play. I have no idea. I'm a crazy person. All right, so this is the biggest snub. So obviously this is the top 10. We know that Le'Veon Bell, Odell Beckham, Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, Ezekiel Elliott, Julio Jones, Khalil Mack, Von Miller, and Aaron Rodgers, and Matt Ryan will be in the top 10. But who didn't make it? I thought my people for who I think should have made it. Aaron Donald, I think should have made it. He's one of those guys that just wreck your game plan. David Johnson, in my opinion, is the guy who really is the biggest. I know he got 12, which is really close, but in my opinion, I would take him over Le'Veon Bell. And I know that might sound blasphemous for some people, but David Johnson averaged 100 yards. First of all, he's more durable. He's more durable. He's obviously Le'Veon Bell has like chronic groin injuries, for God's sakes, which is not even a thing, but he does. And obviously Le'Veon Bell has been suspended multiple times in his career for his weed. His weed was not a problem. I'm pro weed. I think players should be able to smoke weed, but obviously the NFL does not. And he keeps doing it, keeps getting suspended. But David Johnson, David Johnson averaged 100 yards except one game that he got hurt in, a game, and he had 2,000 yards from scrimmage. So that is insane. 2,000 yards in any season. You should win MVP, in my opinion. David Johnson was my Offensive Player of the Year. Obviously, Matt Ryan takes the MVP and Offensive Player of the Year, which I always think is stupid when that happens. But David Johnson, I think, deserved it. And he's one of the best players in the league. I think everybody raves about how good of a route runner Le'Veon Bell is, which is understandable. He is one of the best in the game at it, but I think David Johnson is way better. I think he's on that Marshall Faulk level of route running. LaDainian Tomlinson was a good receiver out of the backfield, but I think obviously Marshall Faulk was the best of all time at that. David Johnson rivals his ability at his ability to do that. If you're most of the fans on this channel are Dolphins fans. If you watched the game, the only reason the Cardinals were even, their whole offense was around him. And he played with a bad offensive line. He's one of the best players in the league, and it is interesting that he didn't make the list there. So that actually might do it here. Let's see here. There's obviously topics about the Saints' big three. Their backfield is super underrated with Alvin Kamara, Adrian Peterson. I've never been a huge Mark Ingram fan, but he's definitely a good. He's an above average quarterback. So there you go. So that's gonna be it, guys. Hang on. 5 receivers. The 5 receivers most valuable to their teams list. Let's read this before we go. Because this was a very short podcast, and I guess if you made it this far, you've either been a long-term listener, or this is probably the worst episode because there was nothing to talk. I almost skipped this week, but there was a couple things we could talk about. All right, so the 5 receivers, according to Nate Burleson, former Detroit Lion, most important to their teams. Number 5, Terrell Pryor. God, let me tell you something about Terrell Pryor. Barely hits 1,000 yards. By far the most talented receiver on his team, which you're going to get the ball a whole lot more on a bad team than you are on a good team. So I don't see he's in another situation where he's probably the best receiver on the team. But he did show flashes of he wasn't consistent though, but he showed flashes of potentially to be a really good receiver. Number 4, Julian Edelman. Definitely not. That's stupid. The Patriots are the kings of replacing people. 3, Odell Beckham Jr. I think he should be higher. 2, Antonio Brown. It's 1, Julio Jones. I guess I agree with that top 3. I think Odell Beckham's probably. I guess he's not more important. But the only bad one on this list was Terrell. I guess both of them were pretty bad. Terrell Pryor and Julian Edelman. If I had to replace those two, I would put, Jesus. Oh, God. See, now, you guys are putting me on the spot, and I don't like it. You guys are putting me on the spot, and I don't like it. Let me see here. I'm just going through everybody in my head right now. Oh, I'm going to say Doug Baldwin. In terms of, if you're going to put a slot receiver on the list, Jarvis Landry, I think would be on that list. And I'm not biased. I was going to put Doug Baldwin on there, but Jarvis is a better player, so I'm going to put Jarvis on there. Maybe not Jarvis because we're pretty deep at receiver. Yeah, Jarvis. Let's see here. I'm trying to think of who else would I put on that list. It's not tight ends, so it has to be receiver. This is a hard list. You always criticize somebody else's list and then you do your own, and you're like, yeah, I understand. It's taken me like 2 weeks to write the top 10 players in the AFC East, and I'm still working on it. Let's see here. God, man. Most important receivers to their team. Larry Fitzgerald. I'm gonna say Larry Fitzgerald, even though he's older. I think he's really important to that Cardinals offense. And I'm gonna say Jarvis Landry. I definitely would take out Terrell Pryor and Julian Edelman. I think the Redskins, if he goes down, they're gonna really drop off that much. All right, so that is going to be it, guys. I am Skaggs1383. Give me your top 5 most valuable receivers in the league. I was put on the spot, so don't crap and criticize. Mike Evans. I forgot about Mike Evans. God. Mike Evans or Jarvis Landry. I'll replace Mike Evans with Larry Fitzgerald. So that is going to be obviously I have Deshaun Jackson now, but Mike Evans is not even the same league. Especially since Jameis Winston, not the most accurate quarterback throwing down the field. So he obviously provides a big catch radius, but anyway, that is going to be it, guys. I am Skaggs1383. Please, if you guys want to do fan Q&A, let me know. Because this would obviously prolong this podcast, which it desperately needs. And I'll see you guys in the next one.